All right, welcome everybody. I see a number of people have joined, so we'll kick off. And as more people join, we'll just get it going here. But anyway, thank you everyone so much, and welcome to our webinar. Today we'll be talking about Pennsylvania's reemerging flax to linen industry. I'm Catherine Peebles. I'm one of the organic consultants based in Pennsylvania. And today I'm joined by Heidi Barr, who's the CEO and co-founder of the PA Flax Project. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being here. I'll pass it to you very shortly. I just want to first mention a couple of housekeeping items for today. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature instead of the chat so we can monitor what's coming in. And then if you're having any tech issues hearing or seeing the webinar, Justin from our education department is on and happy to help. So his number is right here, or you can message him in the chat. And for your reference, this is going to be recorded and it'll be posted on our Rodale site in a couple of weeks from now. So quick agenda today. We're going to do a quick overview of our Rodale Institute organic consulting team. And then I'll pass to Heidi for an overview of the PA Flax Project. And we'll talk about what we learned kind of from this past year, this past season specifically, and cover some 2025 objectives. So really briefly, I want to talk about where I sit, which is on our organic consulting team at Rodale, and give a sense of kind of what we do and how we're partnering with PA Flax Project. So our team is very much aligned with the mission of Rodale Institute, and we specifically help farmers transition to organic and regenerative organic systems. We do that in a couple of ways. First is by providing technical assistance. So as it relates to PA Flax Project, in this webinar specifically, we're working with growers to see how flax can be grown organically in the Northeast. And I guess more broadly, how flax can fit into organic rotation. So anything as it relates to an organic transition and how flax can fit into that system, we're here to support. We also do a lot of research all across the country. We have different regional hubs. So we make sure our technical assistance is regionally relevant and pertains to where you are located. And then last but not least, we do a lot in terms of connecting communities, connecting farmers, ag professionals, basically making sure there's a support system for your organic transition. And more recently, that's looked like having a lot more events. So really bringing those connections in person and disseminating educational resources at those events, but basically ensuring you're supported not just by one individual, but by many. And to give a sense of where we're all located, it's completely national team. So if you're calling in today from any of these states, you can see where our team members are located. Again, making sure that technical assistance is regionally relevant and very much, on the ground, given our team is in all of these states you see here. And while we have the map up, again, as it relates to flax today, a lot of the flax in the US is grown up here and certainly Canada, which you can't see, but today we're going to be specifically talking about what it looks like to grow flax in Pennsylvania. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Heidi to introduce herself and the PA Flax Project.
Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here with you, and it's a pleasure to work with Rodale and your team there. And it's very exciting for us to be connected to this community to further our mission. The Pennsylvania Flax Project is reimagining the flax for linen industry in Pennsylvania. So we're specifically focused on flax for fiber, that's textile use, and co-products. So it's a different variety of flax than you would grow for seed for food. Just to it's a textile project. So our goal is to begin to do the work of recentering textile production on sustainable farms. We were founded in 2020 by myself and my co-founder, Emma DeLong of Knee-High Farm out in Pottstown. And we're on a mission to change the textile industry and create economic growth that's good for both people and planet. We're doing that by organizing a cooperative of farmers. We are, as a legal entity, a co-op, and we'll be opening for co-op membership beyond the two of us this coming winter. And we offer educational programming and farmer support to introduce this niche crop, this new crop into rotations. We are acquiring specialized agricultural equipment, and our midterm goal is to establish a mill that would process the plant from field to spinnable fiber and to establish contracts to bring those products to market. Next slide, please. How are we doing this? Well, we are very busy. We have a business plan that is in 3 stages, and we are hovering between stage 1 and stage 2 right now. We are currently scaling the agriculture of fiber flax in Pennsylvania, supporting farmers with education about the agronomy of fiber flax. Our goal is to put 12,000 plus acres of organic fiber flax into production. The ambitious goal, but we think we could do it. That number actually represents 3,000 or 4,000 acres in any given year in a 3 or 4 year rotation. We're fundraising to support our early adopter farmers. We have raised some funds for guaranteed minimum payments, and we're really looking to raise more so that we're not asking farmers to lose money in these early stages, but rather supporting them with education so we can all succeed. And we are in active negotiations for purchase contracts for products that will eventually be produced at the mill. That's the most active stage we're in right now, scaling of agriculture. Stage 2 is our mill development, and we're in the pre-development stage for that, creating a built environment, creating a built environment strategy and identifying a location. And then we have some work to do to secure investment for the development of the cooperatively owned scutching mill, but we are totally on track there. And the end picture is that the farmers will be owners and share in the value added profits through cooperative ownership of the mill. So farmers, as part of our cooperative, will realize profit after their crop leaves the farm. And that will really start to pan out in stage 3, which is this mill stabilization and management. Next slide, please. It's been an amazing year for us. It's sort of been an amazing 5 years for Emma and I. And with 4 successful growing seasons under our belt, or at the beginning of this year, we were awarded the USDA Organic Market Development Grant, $1.68 million to uplift our work. And that allowed us to hire a team. So it's really great to see this slide with all these faces on it. It really takes a community. That funding also was the beginning of our connection with Rodale and their community. And I think like that sort of support is what is going to really make this happen. So it's been really exciting to be building relationships and supporting farmers, doing co-op development, and just building out the relationships that will get us where we're going. Next slide, please. And other big news, we were able to import this crazy looking specialized harvesting equipment. Because fiber flax has not been grown in North America for a long time at any industrial scale, specialized equipment that's required for harvesting it isn't manufactured here and has to be imported from Europe. So this is our harvesting set that arrived in August of this year from Flanders. The large machine in the back, the large green machine in the back is a puller. The smaller machine in front of that is our turner. And then on the the little red machine is the baler. So we're super excited to have those so that we can scale agriculture and harvest at scale this season. Next slide, please. And then newsflash, we advocated for and were successful in having fiber flax designated as a specialty crop of interest by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. It's a big deal. It means that people growing fiber flax are eligible for certain funding through the state and funding that comes through the federal government to the state level. So that's really exciting. And thank you, Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. We have other funding partners. We have several funding partners besides the USDA. So we have received some innovative funding from the Fibers Fund, which is an organization that supports the growth of industrial sustainable fiber production. When we got the organic market development grant, it's a reimbursement grant. And so it's difficult to spend money when you don't have any money and you had to spend it to get it back from the feds. So Fibers Fund gave us a catalytic grant to unlock those funds, and then also a forgivable loan to help us build out our internal capacity to meet our healing and inclusion goals. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania granted us a specialty crop block grant. So that is supporting our early adopter farmer guaranteed minimum payments, which is really exciting. And we will be this month beginning to do contract work with PASA Sustainable Agriculture, promoting the flax industry in our region as part of their Climate Smart Commodities program. So the village is growing, and that's like really, that is what we need to get there. So it's really exciting to have so many organizations involved. We have a number of fiber research and outreach partners. Jefferson University has been with us for a couple of years, looking at using flax fiber in their non-wovens lab for things like disposable wipes. And Villanova University's Department of Geography and Environment has been involved with us for a couple of years doing research on the ability of fiber flax to draw lead out of contaminated soils. And then our partners at Pennsylvania Fiber Shed, who advance all things sustainable fiber in the state. Next slide, please. 2024 season overview. This is the portion of the slide deck that would normally be presented by Bill Schick, our Director of Agriculture. And he was not able to be with us today due to a family emergency, but please do reach out to him if you have questions. And I am going to do my best to cover all of this information he's sharing. There are challenges and learnings. It's a new crop for a region. Scaling it has challenges, and we've learned a lot. Early season field prep is really key. This is a cool weather crop. You want to get it in the ground as early as possible, and stale seed bedding with multiple cultivation passes, so you have as clean a bed as possible when you're planting, and then really get it in early so that you can get ahead of the heat and the weeds. We are doing a lot of work to acquire proper seeding equipment. High density is best. Fiber flax is planted at between 100 and 120 pounds per acre. And 7.5-inch spacing is really not ideal, but those are the drills that are most available here. Some people have had a lot of success doing 2 passes, going one direction and then back in another direction. It's got some pros and cons. But a maximum of 5.5 inches is really ideal for the row spacing, and 4 inches is what's standard in the portion of Europe that does about 80% of the production. You also want as consistent of in-row spacing as possible, which is a challenge without specialized equipment. So that's one of the challenges we've learned about. Redding is a process of controlled rot that happens after the plant is harvested. You put it back down on the ground on the field, and the moisture and the microbes in the soil separate the woody core of the plant from the fiber bundles that will be used. Warm weather and heavy rain will lead to overretting. You have to watch it really closely if that sort of weather comes along. And assessing the ret really does require education and practice, and that's one of the things that we work to support farmers with in this early stage. Next slide, please. We have a lot of farm partners now. There they are. It's incredible to see this slide. Knee-High Farm is our co-founder's farm. Pasture Song is right next door. Weaver's Way was my CSA farm for 10 years, so they're right up the road from me. And Rodale and John Paul's and Forge Hill are our newest partners. So it's great to see the family growing. Next slide, please. And speaking of new partners, Bill Schick has been bringing in all sorts of really great research partners. I spoke to Jefferson, who's been with us for a while, but it's just in the past year, we have started working with Cornell, Penn State, University of Delaware, and Rutgers around doing seed trials and fiber research. Next slide, please. We planted last year 4 acres of flax at Pasture Song, which Emma's dog June here really enjoyed. It was seeded early, March 22nd. That's ideal. The farmer Jeremy used an esh drill, 5.5-inch spacing, 1 pass, and it went right in after the previous year's corn crop. And it did really well up through flowering. It had really decent competition with the weeds. And probably had we been able to harvest it within a week or so of flowering, we would have had a really great crop. But that harvest equipment that we imported from Flanders had some delays in arrival, and it really prevented us from being able to harvest prior to the weeds really taking over. Next slide, please. It was really beautiful. So here's the field in May. So we planted the end of March, and this is the middle of May. You can see overall it looks great. If you see a close-up, you could see the weeds starting to come in. Next slide, please. And here it is a week after that, just beginning to flower. So you can see on one side of the slide, you see the little yellow flowers. That's some weed pressure coming in. We had a little more weed pressure, I think, on the low side of the hill than the high side, but it still looks pretty great. Next slide, please. And there it is in full flower. And that's just a beauty shot. Next slide, please. And here it is on the 5th of June. Now, I think this is when we would have pulled it had we had the harvesting equipment, but it hadn't arrived yet. Next slide, please. Because here it is on the 13th, and you see more weed pressure coming in. You can see big patchy weeds showing up in the back and the sides. And then we also last winter, for the first time, we did a winter over seed trial at the Weaver's Way farm inside the city limits of Philadelphia. And this is a picture of those plants on April 30th. These plants had been in the ground all winter. They went in the previous October, and they look great here. We had a very successful winter over trial there. Next slide, please. Here are more pictures of that. The picture of my hand near the ground is just showing how weed-free it is. You can see that it was mulched with leaves, and I kind of doubt we'd ever do that at scale, but wow, it really worked. So next slide, please. And there it is, stooked to get it off the field so they can get their veg in, and also laying down on the field retting. Next slide. And we had a processing workshop there. So this is that flax being hand processed into spinnable fiber. So it's really always, it's magical to see something, that straw, yield this beautiful golden fiber that's ready to be spun into yarn. Next slide. These are the seed trials we've been doing with True Love seeds. In 2024, we planted, so these are seed varieties that we're getting from the USDA's GRIN seed bank. So these are old varieties that have probably been improved upon with breeding over the years, but are open source and available for us to grow. And in 2023, we planted 63 varieties with True Love. And then I selected a handful, two handfuls of those to continue with that look like they have promising fiber in an effort to grow out some volume of open source seed that we can use. So that's what this is. The ideal height for fiber flax for processing at the mill level is about 36 to 41 inches. So you could see that these were selected for height. They were also selected for fiber quality. Next slide. And here are some pictures of those seed trials. In the first year that we planted there, we had some learnings. We planted in small rows, and you can see that the plants have fallen over a lot, which is not ideal. I think going forward, we would plant them more like in tiny squares instead of tiny rows and have less of that. Next slide, please. And this is harvesting the seed capsules for processing later. The crew at True Love, they've been incredible partners on this. So, and this is this year, this coming year. This is what we'll be planting there. I think you can reach out to Bill if you have questions about this. Next slide, please. And this is, we've just planted overwinter trials at Emma's farm, Knee-High Farm. And this is what we've planted. So we are cheating and watering it since Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania has had no rain in 5 weeks. So, I mean, flax is drought tolerant, but it's not drought proof. So to get it to germinate, we've really had to water it. But we're planting these varieties. Lisette is a variety from the Netherlands. Lenore is a variety from Oregon that was developed at OSU. The Novia, Idio, and Vivia are all from France, and those three are what we grew last winter, and the avian is also from the Netherlands. Next slide, please. And then we planted overwinter trials again at Weaver's Way. So we planted the same varieties with the exception of Lisette. And it's going to be really interesting to compare how things do inside the city limits where it's a little bit warmer and how they do out there in Pottstown where it's a little bit cooler. Next slide, please. And then there are overwinter trials also planted at Penn State. We're super excited about this because they have grad students who will be able to be very diligent about collecting data on them. Next slide. This is the field map. I have a lot less to say about that than Bill would, but it looks good. Next slide, please. And then we circle back to flax at Rodale. Catherine.
Yes, thank you. Super excited about the overwinter possibilities for especially falling corn. I will just pause really quick while we have a question before I go through our trial this season, but someone had asked, Heidi, is it possible to work with local hemp growers? Some of the equipment might be repurposed for both crops. Your thoughts on that?
We are working with some local hemp growers around seeding equipment because a lot of the seeding needs for fiber are similar in that you want similar row spacing and you also want the precision of space between seeds. In terms of harvest and processing, there's not a direct overlap of equipment.
So thank you. I'll just dive into what we attempted at Rodale. Glad you walked through Pasture Song first, as I think there are a lot of learning lessons, or we can compare and contrast. But this was our field map. We tried 2 varieties, the Lenore and Lisette. This was grown out for grains, so we were hoping to save the seed. That didn't end up happening. I'll talk about why, but we did harvest some of this Lisette for fiber. And yeah, I think you touched on the difference in these varieties, but we'll look at some photos as well. So overall it was about under an acre. And so I did want to give Brandon a shout out, who's one of the farm managers at our PA campus, and he was a great help in planting. And flax is something none of us at Rodale, at least in PA, had grown before. So we worked together to get that in the ground. It was also like pasture song followed by corn. The field that it went into, I don't know what happened to the picture here, but we had a photo of what the field looked like after being grazed over the winter, and disc twice, cultipack once. So you could see if that photo is loading, it's a little cloudy, but we had a big night in planting. We got in the flax about a month after it was planted at Pasture Song, so we definitely saw the questions of that. It was a super wet spring, and this went in a pretty low-lying field, so it was very wet. And so not only did we get it in late, but we had the wider spacing. Like Heidi was saying, it's pretty common for small grains to plant at 7.5-inch spacing, but I think we learned a lot from back to plant across the field or have tried a smaller spacing. And you could see how tiny the seed is there. Oh, well, there's the photo of the field. And let's see. There we go. So this is about a month after it was planted. I think one of the big lessons we learned too, after talking with everyone at Knee High and Pasture Song, is that pass with the tine weeder would have been good probably about a week before this point, generally maybe 10 to 2 weeks after planting. I think by this point it was a little too late. You could see the weed pressure here at this stage of the flax. So by this point it's a little too late to tine weed, which I think, again, that was one of our major learning lessons, is doing at least one pass and upping the seeding rate if that had been the plan. In one area of the field, we had a lot of mustard pressure, so that was poking through in the Pasture Song field as well, but we had quite a bit in this one area specifically, which is something we were kind of debating how that happened. Likely poor timing with plowing in the spring, but this mustard weed pressure might be a little anecdotal, but just being very honest about what it looked like at this point in terms of early season weed pressure. Later season weed pressure, we saw some ragweed and foxtail start to come up at the stage of the flax. So at this point, again, not much we could do in terms of weed control. That's really when the mustard took off, and that was the end of June. By July 3rd, it kind of died back, but again, that ragweed foxtail is kind of what we were dealing with. That brought us to the end of August, when it talked a little bit about the timing of harvest, had the equipment been available, but also I think between the getting it in late, the wider spacing, and not attempting to tine weed, those were our 3 learning lessons. So in talking for plans for next year, we've kind of done the thing y'all shouldn't do. So, and we've identified a field that is a little bit less low-lying, so definitely less wet, to get in earlier, and we're definitely rethinking kind of the prep for the field bed as well as how it's going to be drilled. So certainly a lot of learnings, and again, very transparent with all these photos, but just want to show you what it looks like if you weren't to follow the protocol. So excited for next year though, because we certainly learned a lot. And Heidi, I'll pass back to you.
Okay. Catherine, I just want to say how much we at PA Flax really appreciate Rodale's willingness to share that sad story of the lessons learned last season, because it's not without its challenges. It's a new crop, and we really need to, as a community, get familiar with the challenges, and celebrate the wins and the losses so that we can move forward into 2025 planning and goals. Next slide, please. 2025 promises to be a big year with our harvesting equipment on our shores and operational. We are hoping to plant about 100 acres. We will be planting 3 to 5 varieties and possibly even 6 that we will be getting from European partners, who will be working with us on identifying the best varieties for our region. We'll be working with both academic and farm partners to determine which of these work best here, and what we want to work with moving forward. So both smaller plot fiber and seed variety trials, and fiber evaluation plots. So we're looking for farms that can grow, 5 to 10 acres, because that's what makes sense for our harvest equipment to harvest. And if you're not going to grow enough for the harvesting equipment to harvest it, then you're harvesting by hand, which is a very laborious process. So for growers who want to become familiar with the crop, but start with less than 5 acres, we suggest less than half an acre, and we just support you with education around that. And we will have huge learnings from that as well. We are planning to send a portion of our harvest to Europe and/or Canada to be mechanically scutched, which means processed into spinnable fiber. And that is so that we can get accurate metrics on the yield for not only fiber, but all the co-products produced at the mill, and to get an idea of what we'll be working with financially going forward. And to get also accurate quality metrics, and to have samples to show to folks we're working with who will eventually be purchasing products from our own mill. We'll continue with our mill pre-development. We're looking to identify a location within 2025 to complete our built environment strategy and open up the first round of funding. And then it's always the ongoing work of refining our financial model and doing cooperative development. Next slide, please. How can you get involved? Lots of ways. That QR code goes to our website. Please check it out. There's a growers survey there. We'd love for any growers to fill that out. We are looking for growers for demonstration education plots, research partners, and commercial growers. So there's room for everybody. We have a community square yard project that we do annually, where folks grow a square yard of flax. They're supported with education about the crop. If it's in a public location, they can put up a sign, and then we do processing workshops with participants at the end. And it's just a really great way to learn about this movement and get involved and spread the word. And we do a lot of events like this one and in person. And we are also looking to bring on some student internships this coming season to help with our educational programming. So reach out. Next slide, please. Where can you find us? This is all on our website event page, but right now, I'll just say almost finished is the Regeneration of Flax exhibition in New York at Parsons Healthy Materials Lab. And if you're close to New York and you have a moment, it's just really a must-see exhibit. They did a beautiful job of showcasing everything that the flax plant can do, from fiber to industrial building and paper making. So that's only up through November 12th. And then these other things are all happening later. Next slide, please. We started last year building some partnerships abroad. We took a visit funded by the Organic Market Development Grant. We started by visiting a farm in the UK that is a business on the same path as we are, but ahead of us, This is their field on the final harvest day. This is what we hope to be doing next year. It was really great to meet someone who is doing what we're doing, and we're looking forward to visiting them again. Next slide, please. In Belgium and Flanders, we visited De Porter, which is the machinery manufacturer who made our harvesting equipment and a likely source for mill equipment. They were founded in 1925, and their workshop was pretty incredible. Coming in the door are sheets of steel and tubes of steel, and going out the door are finished machines. So they have a really beautiful workshop. They connected us with our harvesting set, and they also introduced us to a lot of mill owners in Flanders. Next slide, please. So here we are touring a mill in France, in northern France. These are our goals. This mill was our favorite mill. It's the one we want. So I'm in that center photo. I'm standing next to bales of scutched fiber flax, getting ready to go into the world market. And we're looking forward to having that right here in Pennsylvania in another 3 years. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I really barely touched on this sort of processing products that come out of the mill. So if you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. And thanks, Catherine. And thanks as well to share.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I'm just going to go back to this QR code as we had a question about the link to the website. So I wanted to leave this up for anyone interested in connecting further with PA Flax Project. If there's any questions beyond flax or flax plus interest in transitioning to organic, please don't hesitate to reach out to both of us. We also have an intake form on our Rodale website, but certainly flax specific. Here's the QR code for you. And I also put the website in the chat. Great. So let's see if we've missed anything else. Couple of questions. One is, I think these two could be combined. So would you consider this regenerative agriculture? And kind of in that same vein, is the goal to continue growing flax organically? Or kind of what are the production guidelines in terms of regenerative and organic?
Regenerative with a capital R, I don't know what all the guidelines are to that. Do you, Catherine?
Yeah, I would say we, at least from Rodale perspective, are supporting growers transitioning to regenerative organic. So in that case, regenerative organic certification, or you might hear the acronym ROC, requires organic certification first as a baseline. So that would be in terms of all the regenerative certifications out there, the path that we're supported growers on is for ROC specifically.
Okay. And yes, our goal is to continue growing flax organically. We do support all farmers who want to start growing flax, and we're definitely wanting to support folks who want to transition to organic and have flax as part of that, of their rotation and as part of that process. As with any other crop, there are challenges to growing flax organically that we have to address, but that's what we're working on. Organic flax production globally, at least in Europe, is a very, very small percentage of flax that is produced. We're looking to increase that here in North America through our work. We are not, this brings up the question for me of the like no-till versus organic, right? So flax is not suitable for no-till organic at this point, as we haven't accomplished that. It's like any other, similar to other organic crops, tillage is how you control weeds as opposed to using an herbicide. So yeah, it's so, but yes, that's our goal, is to do it organically. We are looking to achieve a pretty large scale, and I think in doing that, we need to support folks that want to grow flax. And so initially, not all of our fields may be organic, but we'll be working with them to transition. And that's part of what's so great about our university research partners and our partnership with Rodale, is that we have a lot of technical assistance we can support folks with.
Yeah, that's perfect, because you answered also the next question in talking about if whether or not no-till planting is viable. So yeah, that's what I had up there. And just as you said, it's trickier when it's attempted organically, but definitely done conventionally. So kind of just depends on your goals. But yeah, you answered that right away.
And
And
we are working with a hemp grower right now on developing a seed drill that would get the spacing and precision we're after, and they are focused on no-till. So it's great that we have research partners where all these ideas intersect, and we'll learn.
yeah, totally agreed. Then let's see. There's a question about the name of the place in New York, which I was just scrolling back, but I'm not sure if that was in reference to.
Was that Parsons Healthy Materials Lab?
Oh, yeah, let me go all the way back.
Whoa.
Yes.
It's Parsons. I think it's still a couple slides up.
Okay.
I think you'll find it on our events page on our website as well. So it's Parsons Healthy Materials Lab, and they do a lot of really great work. You should check them out anyway. But that's where the exhibit is right now.
That technically answered. Oh, there's one more. Question about tumbleweeds being it's in out west. Follow up with you on that separately, Kim, if that's all right. Just to make sure I was understanding the question, but yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just put my email here and we can make sure we get that answered for you. But thank you everyone so much for your questions, participation, and just see if there's anything else. Yeah, Ben had a good question about the new drill that's being worked on. Would it be easier to calibrate? Might thing we want to run by Bill too, but he had some conversations with dealers just to try to get some demos out in the field to see if, maybe if those, yeah, if it would be easier to calibrate. I hope so. But I think
Yeah, we're doing kind of a deep dive on seed drills right now. So there's a lot of different options. There's 3 or 4 different things we'd like to try this season. We are planning to demo a couple things with dealers and to see how those go, and then also just working on creating one or retrofitting one. Yeah, it's the combination of, I mean, the drills that they use in Europe tend to be very expensive seed drills, and they give a combination of the 4-inch row spacing with very, very accurate spacing within the row of seed. So they're vacuum seeders. So anyway, we're doing a deep dive on that this season. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, everybody. Looks like most of the questions a shot here. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. And Heidi, unless there's anything else you wanted to mention, we could probably wrap up.
Yeah, no, thank you to everybody for your questions. I always love what people ask.
Mhm.
And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. And thanks for coming today.
You, everyone, have a great rest of your day. And yeah, hopefully we'll be in touch.